Hi, this is yet another of my Python tips videos, and this time I'm looking at how you might be able to tweak your program to make it run a bit faster. Now, I've heard that using dot notation, this is slower than using a reference, so I'll just show you what I mean. There. I'm just importing random, and then that's what I mean by random dot notation, when you go random dot rand int. So what I'm doing is I'm just creating 40,000 times, I'm creating a random integer between 0 and 1, and then I'm recording the time and doing that 50 times and taking the average. So if we see how long that takes, right, that takes about 2 seconds. Now I've copied this code. Whoops. I've copied this code a couple of times. And the first time I'm using rand int, which is from random import rand int, to see if it makes any difference. And then the third time, my random is a reference to random.rand int. So all the time I'm using my random, which is a reference. So as opposed to the program having to keep going and looking to see where random.rand int is, it ought to be quicker, but we will see. There, you can see when I used random.rand int, it took that length of time. It was quicker just using rand int there, but it was quicker still by using a reference. So I think that kind of proves my point. It needs more exhaustive testing, but I think that proves that perhaps using a reference is quicker than using dot notation. Now the second thing that I've heard is that if you use global variables, it's slower than if you use local variables. So I'll just show you again what I mean. Right, Mickey Mouse program. Now that is all in the main program, so those are global variables, and all I'm doing is I just want to use them in that for loop, and I'm timing it. So if we see how long that takes, right, it takes that long. Now if you want to make it to use, that wasn't English, if you want it to use local variables, I've just copied that code and I've changed X and Y to A and B, just so I'm sure that it is using what I want it to use, so it isn't sneakily using a global version of it, and I need to run it, call the function. Right, so that is just doing what it did before, that bit using global variables, and then calling that function and using local variables. And look, that's using global, and that's doing exactly the same thing, only using local variables, which is pretty good. And I don't know, I'll get rid of that. No, I'll get rid of all of that. Now, I don't know about you, but quite often you notice grown-up programmers, when they write a program, they put something like that in. And now that is my code that I've just put in that bit. But this, if dunder name equals main, and then you run that main, that, I thought the whole point of that was, the only point of that was so that if you have that in a library and you import it, if you don't have that bit at the top, it will execute the code as opposed to just importing it. So that is what that is for. And of course, if you just have a file and you go import blah blah, I think it will run anyway. Or will it? Well, anyway, it doesn't matter. It's to stop it running when you don't want it to run. But it has the added bonus of, if you look, everything, all your code is in a function, so that is all local variables. So how long would that take? Yep, again, it is much faster. And there's just one other thing on this subject. I've got two functions that look pretty similar to each other. No, that isn't the one. I will find it. Right, I found it. This is what I wanted. Whoops, oh, for goodness sake. I'm having finger trouble here. Right. Here are two functions. The code's exactly the same. I've got b, which is a global variable outside that function and outside that function. And what I'm doing, the first function, is I'm just saying exactly as before, a equals b. So that's using one local variable and one global variable. But the second one, I'm actually calling the function with an argument. So I'm calling it with b. I've called it c there, just so there's no doubt that it is a different thing. So here, that's local, and those two are both local. So I don't know how much difference it will make in timing, but we'll see. Yeah, look. That's the one that's using the global variable, and then that's the one that I passed it in, and it's using two local variables. So I think that proves that it might be worth looking at. Now, my third thought about how to make your program faster is that it's actually quite important to consider the order of conditions in if statements. So if we just look at this there, that is just 3 booleans, all of which are true, saying is Frankie here, is Frankie hungry, is food available. And in the for statement, which does it however many times, I'm saying is Frankie hungry, and is Frankie here, and is food available. So if you just run that, then it gives you that time, because it's all true. Yep, it was all true. But if, say, you make Frankie being hungry is false, you can, and I've put lots of different cases here. Copy. Do I need that one anymore? I'll get rid of that one. Right, so what I've done here is I'm checking is Frankie hungry first, and then is Frankie here and is food available, and then I'm printing out the time with false in position 1, and then I've changed them round, so I put is Frankie here and is Frankie hungry and is food available, and that was false in position 2, and then it's in position 3. So I'm printing out all the times, and the whole point, did I already say this? If it's checking it, it will, with an and, it will say, it will check that, And if that's false, it will stop checking. It won't bother to check those. It says, what's the point? What is the point of checking any further? And equally, if that's true and that's false, it won't bother to check that. So there we go. With false in the first position, because it gives up checking, it's an awful lot quicker than in the second position and in the third position, which is kind of quite interesting. And so, as I said before, you ought to put the least likely to be true in the first position. Then it will bomb out quicker. But I don't like that is and. I don't mind a is and, but having it like that is a bit shonky. So I would tend to rewrite that as something like I've lost the timer. I'm getting rid of the timer. I'm not really interested in the timer. There. Requirements. You put the requirements in there, and you can just go if all requirements. So what the all requirements says is that true? Is that true? Is that true? And as soon as it meets something that isn't true, it says no, that isn't true. So there again, it's important to put the one that's least likely to be true first. Then you can kind of do the same thing with or. Copy that. Get rid of all that. Right, dogs this time, not cat. Again, you've got your three booleans, and with or, it's still important as to which order they're in. And with or, you want your most likely to be at the beginning, because as soon as it finds something that's true, it doesn't bother to check. So again, I've done this with the true in position 1, the true in position 2, and the true in position 3. So if we run that, there. Again, the order which you put things in, as in most likely earlier on, the quicker it runs. And equally, you can do something like that. You put them in the requirements and you put them in the right order. So you put is Bess hungry. Ideally it should be there, and if you're doing or, it's any. If any of the requirements, then you feed the dogs. So that's just about that. Now, I was thinking about how you could create a list of requirements and check it with all or any, and I thought you don't actually have to put booleans in it. So I did this. So I've got garment equals skirt, colour blue, size equals 10, and I've created a list of needs, as in garment has to be skirt, colour has to be blue, and size has to be 10. I don't really want that comma. And you can just go, so that is just a condition as opposed to a boolean. And you can still go if all needs, yes, else, no. So it works. And if I change the size to 11, it says no. So So that's quite cool, well, in my opinion. And you can do, in a previous video I did something with item getter. Now I won't explain item getter again. If you're interested in item getter, then you can look at my previous video. So I've got import item getter. Now I can put in more needs there, because the whole point is, with item getter you can pick and choose what you want. So I've got all these things. That is it a skirt, is it a shirt, is it a bikini? I definitely don't want that, because it definitely can't be all right at the same time. So with item getter you can create something like that, skirt and size 10. So item getter says you take you want to look for it being a skirt, which is 0, and then size 10, which is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that ought to work. So I'll just print what that is, so you can see what's happening. There. Right, it's that whatever it's called, skirt and size 10, is an operator, and it's checking the conditions. It's created a tuple which contains 0 and 5 in it. So that just says garment equals skirt and size equals 10 in the tuple in there. So you can use it like you did before. I will get rid of that line and put, for example, that. Right, if all, well that's both really, skirt and size 10 in that, print garment in size blah blah is correct, otherwise sorry. So if we run that, sorry. And that is because it isn't size 10. So if you change that to size 10, hurrah! Skirt in size 10 is correct. And there's nothing to stop you creating all sorts of other item getter things. You could change that to being, oh, I don't know, bikini and red, for example, which would be 1, 0, 1, that would be 2, that would be 2 and 4, or you can create all sorts of things. So it's a jolly good way of creating a whole list of things. Okay, so this is a bit frivolous, being shirts and colours and sizes, but you could use it for all sorts of things.